This video shows a new corn header attachment called a Cornrower that has been developed in order to solve some of the problems that have plagued corn stover harvesting and prevented realization of the benefits of this valuable commodity. Those problems primarily are dirt contamination during harvest, management of water in stover, whether you want to harvest it as wet material or if you want to harvest it as dry material, and of course the time constraint issues that come with harvesting stover at the same time as harvesting grain. Here we see the Cornrower harvesting grain that is 23% moisture with stover that is 60% moisture. The effort here was to harvest stover for feed, and you'll see later in this video adding lime to the windrows that were put down in this field in order to enhance the feed value of this stover. It's critical to manage the moisture level in stover that is being harvested for feed if you want to ensile the stover. The Cornrower allows the operator to follow the combine very closely with the forage harvester, since the windrow is formed by the corn harvesting machine, and by doing so, retain the moisture that is naturally in the corn stalk. This is the Cornrower in operation from the viewpoint of the operator of the combine. This is a 12-row corn head, and it is operating in corn that was replanted, so you will see corn stalks that are literally in the aisle of the corn row. The Cornrower does a very good job of managing down corn, elbowed corn, or corn that is brittle, such as corn on frozen ground. This video was taken in February of 2011. It shows an experimental Cornrower operating in a field that was frozen and had snow covering the ground. This particular video really lets the operator see how cleanly the Cornrower can sweep the material off the stalk rolls and into a windrow. You'll also see how uniform the windrows are, and that's because they are air formed. The two center rows in the corn head have housings that blow the material straight back and pick the material off the conveyors, and with an airstream put stover very uniformly into a windrow that will dry easily and feed into a baler very nicely. You see activity in the field where we were harvesting stover for feed. Lime is being added to the windrow. The lime is being used to enhance the feed value by making the digestibility of the stover better. This is an effort that was done in collaboration with Monsanto and ADM. Those two companies are working to improve the feed value of stover, and this lime treatment is one of those efforts. You see the lime being added to the windrow that is shown here being run into a forage harvester for chopping. The lime coming into the forage harvester is in powder form, but when you see the material that comes out of the spout, it is a green color. The reaction happening right inside the forage harvester makes the lignin that is surrounding the cell wall less strong and frees sugars for digestion. The Cornrower works by putting a housing under each row unit that you see here underneath the left row of this 8-row corn head. The housing surrounds a cutting, rotating knife that cuts the material that the stalk rolls put through the row unit, chops it up, and blows it through a tunnel onto the conveyor that you see in between the corn head and the drive tire of this combine. The operation of the Cornrower is pretty simple, and in fact the operator running the combine will hardly know that the Cornrower is on the corn head because most of it can't be seen, and the visible action of the corn head is much the same with the Cornrower on as without one on the corn head. Here we see more video of the lime being added to the windrow. Notice in this field that there is a considerable amount of cover crop on the ground. You see it as green grass, and that is in fact what it is. The cover crop is being used to enhance the organic matter that's in the field. Taking stover off the field is a serious issue, especially if it's not managed properly. But if it is managed properly, there are great benefits to the farmer in more feed harvested, and studies are showing that in a corn after corn rotation, that removing some of the stover in a managed way can enhance the yield in the following year. You see the green material coming out of the chopper here as lime has reacted with the stover inside the forage harvester. That's solid evidence that this lime has a serious impact on the stover inside the forage harvester. The material that you just saw being chopped in the field is being unloaded from the wagon behind the tractor. Notice how much greener it is than the material coming out of the semi-trailer, which is material that came from a seed corn plant. We point out that using stover residue as feed is not a new concept, and one can visually see in this part of the video that adding the lime makes a significant difference in what the feed looks like. This is stover being harvested to eventually be baled with a big square baler for bedding. You see the combine traveling through the field, and you see the conveyor that's ahead of the drive tire. The material that is going into the corn head never touches the ground until it's in the windrow. That chopping unit you see from the left row unit receives the material from the stalk rolls, and it chops the stover as it blows it into the conveyor. And of course the conveyor keeps it up above the ground until it is deposited under the feeder house. You then see that we've disabled the straw chopper, and the material coming out of the back of the combine lands on top of the material that the corn head had previously put down. In this manner, all material other than grain is cleanly windrowed with no chance of dirt or rock contamination. Here you can get a better view of the conveyor located right behind the corn head. You see the stubble that the cornrower leaves in the field. In this broader view of the field, you see stubble that is very uniform in a field that is very clean with windrows that are well shaped. The cornrower does an excellent job of putting the stover into a windrow very cleanly and uniformly. Here you see a 12-row cornrower that is attached to a CR9060 combine operating in a field of corn that was making about 180 bushels to the acre. You'll see that the conveyor is considerably longer on this 12-row corn head than the ones that you have seen on the 8-row corn head, but the operation of the 12-row corn head is very much like the 8-row. You see the stalks moving in the wind in this field, and wind erosion in much of the corn growing area is a serious matter. The cornrower cuts the stubble off cleanly, and the stubble height can be varied by changing the angle of the corn head to leave longer stubble to catch leaves, snow, or any kind of residue that will help stop wind erosion in the field. The erosion from water is also a serious matter when corn stover is removed from the field. Cover crops are one way that a farmer can help control erosion from water, but the cornrower doesn't dislodge any corn root balls, and this greatly helps stabilize soil to stop erosion by water. Because the windrowing of stover happens concurrently with the corn grain harvest, labor management becomes much easier, as this field is immediately ready for chopping of the windrowed stover or left to dry before a separate baling crew comes in. Whether it's erosion control, labor management, or getting dirt-free stover, the cornrower uniquely offers solutions that were previously unavailable. While corn stover has many uses, none may be as important as the use of corn stover for feed, and the treatment of adding lime to the stover is just one of the ways that the value of the stover can be improved. You see the lime being added to the windrow here, and here you see the forage harvester chopping the windrow and putting it into a wagon. The labor that is needed in order to harvest corn stover is a serious issue, and processing the stover for feed in this manner is one of the most labor-efficient ways to harvest stover. You see the stover being tested for pH here to make sure that there is enough lime being added to the windrow to allow the lime to improve the digestibility of the stover by weakening the lignin that surrounds the cell. Utilizing the benefits available in corn stover is long overdue, and new methods to do this are needed. The Cornrower is a new attachment on the market that fits a 99C New Holland corn head. The Cornrower affords the farmer a unique opportunity to improve profitability while improving the supply of food, fuel, and fiber that is demanded of American agriculture more every year. The Cornrower is unmatched by any system of harvesting stover for control of dirt, as well as moisture, and improving labor efficiency while harvesting stover. Thank you for your consideration of the Cornrower and for watching this video. If there are any questions and for more information, go to our website www.newhollandrochester.com and click on the Cornrower link to see more video as well as an ASABE paper on the newest development in harvesting corn stover.